I never imagined I'd be a father. I was Nathan Reynolds, the type of man who lived in high-rise penthouses and orchestrated billion-dollar deals, where the idea of parenthood was an abstract concept at best. But 5 years ago, everything changed. Susan, wild, untamed Susan, came into my life like a hurricane, shaking the foundations of everything I thought I knew. Our relationship was fiery, to say the least. We fought as hard as we loved, but I could never tame her spirit, never fully hold on to the woman I wanted to protect but who refused to be caged. The night she left is a memory burned into my mind, a blur of shouting, broken glass, and a slap that I've never forgiven myself for. She disappeared into the night, taking my heart with her. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know that her life ended in a hospital bed, giving birth to our daughter, Victoria. I found out 7 months later, a jarring phone call at 3 a.m. that shattered the remnants of my peace. A baby girl, left in my care, a second chance at a life I thought was beyond me. Fast forward 5 years. Victoria is the center of my world, her laughter the melody that wakes me every morning, her smile the reason I come home every night. Today, she starts school, her first big step into the world. It should be a day of joy, of pride. But instead, it's the day my past catches up with me. As I walk Victoria to the entrance of the school, her tiny hand clutching mine, something, or rather, someone, catches my eye. A little girl, standing a few feet away, looking as though she stepped straight out of my memories. She's the spitting image of Victoria, right down to the way her dark curls bounce with each movement. My breath hitches, a cold dread creeping into my chest. My eyes shift to the woman standing beside the girl, and the world tilts on its axis. It's Susan. No, it can't be. Susan is gone. But the woman's face is unmistakable, her features so familiar it hurts. I'm rooted to the spot, every instinct screaming at me to run, to pull Victoria away from this ghost from my past. Excuse me? The woman's voice cuts through the fog of confusion. She's staring at me, and when our eyes meet, I see the shock in her gaze, a reflection of my own turmoil. Nathan? Isabel? The name slips from my lips before I can stop it, and the realization slams into me like a freight train. Isabel, Susan's twin sister, the one I met only once, the night I stumbled into her apartment by mistake. The night that, apparently, changed everything. Belle, the little girl by her side, isn't just a stranger. She's my daughter too. The world around me blurred into nothingness as I stared at Isabel, and the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. My heart raced, 1,000 emotions colliding all at once: guilt, anger, fear, and a strange, unexpected flicker of hope. How could this be? How could I have 2 daughters, so alike they could be twins, from 2 women I thought I'd never see again? Isabel's face was pale, her eyes wide as she looked at Victoria and then back at me. Nathan, she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't know. I didn't know you were Belle's father. My legs felt like they would give out beneath me, but I forced myself to stay upright, my gaze shifting to Belle. She was looking at Victoria with the same confusion, the same shock that was rippling through me. I didn't know either, I managed to say, my voice sounding foreign to my ears. Susan never told me she had a sister. And I didn't know about that night. Isabel nodded slowly, her face a mask of conflicted emotions. I didn't know you were the man she talked about. The man she loved, even though she couldn't stay. She paused, taking a deep breath. When she died, I didn't know how to reach out. I didn't even know where you were, and I was dealing with my own grief. And then, Belle. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, with the weight of the past crashing down on us both. I looked at Belle again, her innocent face so full of questions she couldn't possibly understand. How could I tell her? How could I explain to Victoria that she had a sister she'd never known about? But even as my mind raced with questions, something else began to stir deep within me, a sense of responsibility, of duty. These 2 little girls were my blood, my legacy. I couldn't run from this. I couldn't hide from the truth that had been thrust upon me. We need to talk, I said, my voice firmer now. All of us. I think there's a lot we need to figure out. Isabel nodded, and for a moment, our eyes locked, a silent understanding passing between us. Whatever had happened in the past, whatever mistakes we'd made, we had to set them aside. For Victoria. For Belle. For the future we'd never planned, but one we had to navigate together. We arranged to meet that evening, after the girls had had their first day of school, in the park near my house. The hours dragged on, each tick of the clock echoing with the weight of what was to come. When I picked Victoria up from school, she was bubbling with excitement, but I couldn't shake the tension gnawing at me. In the park, we sat under the shade of a large oak tree, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. Isabel was there with Belle, and the two girls played together as if they'd been friends forever, oblivious to the storm brewing between the adults. "Nathan," Isabel began softly, "I never intended to hide this from you." I didn't even know it was something to hide until today. I nodded, trying to suppress the anger and confusion that bubbled beneath the surface. "I believe you. But this is complicated. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I have another daughter." She looked down, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I know. It's overwhelming. But we have to think about the girls. They're what matters now." A silence fell between us, broken only by the laughter of Victoria and Belle as they chased each other around the tree. I watched them, my heart aching with the realization of how much I'd missed, how much I'd never known. But alongside that pain was a growing resolve: no matter what, I had to be there for both of them. I couldn't fail them like I had failed Susan. Finally, Isabel spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Nathan, I think we should try to make this work. Not for us, but for them. They deserve to know each other, to grow up together." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw the vulnerability in her eyes. She wasn't just Susan's twin, wasn't just a reminder of my past mistakes. She was a mother, just like I was a father, trying to do the best for her child. And in that moment, I realized that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way through this, together. "I agree," I said quietly. "We'll figure this out." For them. The days turned into weeks, and what started as an awkward alliance between Isabel and me slowly began to morph into something else. Something neither of us had expected. Isabel and Belle moved into the guest house on my property. It made sense, given the circumstances, but it also meant that our lives became entwined in ways we hadn't anticipated. Every morning, I saw Belle and Victoria off to school, and every evening, we shared dinner as a family. The girls quickly became inseparable, their laughter filling the house with a warmth I hadn't known I was missing. But with that warmth came something else, a growing tension between Isabel and me. We were both trying so hard to keep things strictly about the girls, but the more time we spent together, the more the lines began to blur. I found myself looking forward to our late-night talks after the girls had gone to bed, our conversations shifting from logistics and parenting to deeper, more personal topics. I began to see sides of Isabel that I hadn't noticed before: her quiet strength, her compassion, her unwavering love for Belle. And I couldn't deny the attraction that simmered beneath the surface, a dangerous undercurrent that neither of us dared to acknowledge. One evening, after a particularly long day, we found ourselves alone in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. The girls were asleep, and the house was eerily quiet. I handed Isabel a dish, and our fingers brushed, a simple touch that sent a jolt of electricity through me. I saw her flinch, her breath catching slightly, and when our eyes met, there was no denying the tension that crackled between us. "Nathan," she began, her voice low and uncertain. This is getting complicated." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The air was thick with unspoken words, with the weight of everything we'd been avoiding. "We can't keep pretending," she continued, her gaze locked on mine. "Not when things are changing so much between us." "I know," I finally managed to say, my voice rough with emotion. "I feel it too, Isabel. But, what does it mean?" She hesitated, her eyes searching mine for something: reassurance, maybe, or perhaps just the truth. I don't know. But we can't ignore it. Not anymore. In that moment, everything seemed to come to a head. All the unspoken feelings, the unresolved tension, the growing connection between us, it all boiled over, and before I knew it, I was stepping closer to her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Isabel," I whispered, my hand reaching out to gently cup her cheek. "I don't want to pretend anymore." Her eyes fluttered shut at my touch, and for a moment, I thought she might pull away. But then she leaned into me, her breath warm against my skin as she whispered, "Neither do I." And just like that, the dam broke. I closed the distance between us, my lips finding hers in a kiss that was long overdue. It was a kiss filled with all the things we'd kept hidden, all the emotions we'd tried to suppress. And as we stood there in the dim light of the kitchen, I knew there was no turning back. The kiss ended as suddenly as it began, both of us pulling away with a mixture of surprise and longing. We stared at each other, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. "We can't," she started, but I cut her off with a shake of my head. "No," I said firmly. "We can't keep running from this. We have to face it, together." Her eyes softened, and for the first time since we'd re-entered each other's lives, I saw something more than just co-parenting. I saw a future, a real, tangible future where we weren't just two people brought together by circumstance, but something more. Something lasting. "I want to try," she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of the decision. "But I'm scared, Nathan. Scared of what it could mean for the girls, for us." I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "We'll figure it out. One step at a time. But I'm not letting you go, Isabel. Not again." She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Okay. We'll try." And in that moment, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. The past had haunted us for long enough. It was time to build a future, a real family, not just for Victoria and Belle, but for us as well. As we stood there, holding each other in the quiet of the night, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, I had hope. Hope that we could finally find the happiness that had eluded us for so long. Hope that, despite everything, love could still find a way. If you like this story, please subscribe, like, click the bell, and leave a comment. Thank you in advance.